This is the forgotten song. Listen. Perhaps you catch a hint of an ancient state not quite forgotten, dim perhaps and yet not altogether unfamiliar, like a song whose name is long forgotten and the circumstances in which you heard completely unremembered. Not the whole song has stayed with you, but just a little wisp of melody attached not to a person or a place or anything particular. But you remember, from just this little part, how lovely was the song, how wonderful the setting where you heard it, and how you loved those who were there and listened with you. The notes are nothing, yet you have kept them with you, not for themselves, but as a soft reminder of what would make you weep if you remembered how dear it was to you. You could remember, yet you are afraid, believing you would lose the world you learned since then. And yet you know that nothing in the world you learned is half so dear as this. Listen, and see if you remember an ancient song you knew so long ago and held more dear than any melody you taught yourself to cherish since. Beyond the body, beyond the sun and stars, past everything you see and yet somehow familiar, is an arc of golden light that stretches as you look into a great and shining circle. And all the circle fills with light before your eyes. The edges of the circle disappear, and what is in it is no longer contained at all. The light expands and covers everything, extending to infinity, forever shining and with no break or limit anywhere. Within it, everything is joined in perfect continuity, nor is it possible to imagine that anything could be outside, for there is nowhere that this light is not. Today's reading is from chapter 21. It's on reason and perception. The introduction. Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. But though it is no more than that, it is not less. Therefore, to you it is important. It is a witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. Perception is a result and not a cause, and that is why order of difficulty is in miracles is meaningless. Everything looked upon with vision is healed and holy. Nothing perceived without it means anything. And where there is no meaning, there is chaos.
Yeah, this whole idea, there's actually a book called As a Man Thinketh, kind of a classic in the New Thought movement. There are books and books and books written on this paragraph or the next couple of paragraphs, this introduction.
But in As a Man Thinketh, does it say that it's a it's an inward condition and that what you think from the inward is what you get from the outward world?
Yeah, I mean, that's what, they all say that. I mean, it's like Joseph Murphy on psychocybernetics and all these kind of things is, how you think, and therefore there's this attention to the focusing of your mind so that you think, quote unquote, good thoughts. But I know that there is a lot of truth to it. There is a lot of truth to it. But the Course, I think, takes it a lot deeper than just I manipulate my mind so that I can manipulate my outside world.
Oh, right.
The Course doesn't encourage that at all. The purpose for manipulating your mind isn't to see a happy world. That's not the purpose.
Right. It's not to come up with new thoughts. It's to let go of basically of judgments and grievances. So I have to be aware of my judgments and grievances so that I have an open mind, an open space for the Holy Spirit to now be able to use my vehicle as the communication device that it was used for.
I think, the absolutely, unequivocally most important thing is self-honesty. Mm-hmm. The most important thing is to be honest with yourself. It's not to say, wow, that was a negative thought. I need to fix that one and that one and that one, like you're trying to catch, putting buckets under a leaky roof. Mm-hmm. The deal is to understand, because in the so-called New Age, the Course in Miracles, any of these, quote-unquote new thought or mind over matter, whatever you want to call, or whatever you think it is, hoodoo, whatever you want to label it as. The deal is I'm showing up. This shadow self is showing up. This shadow self has certain predispositions.
Right.
Mine is reactive. I have outbursts of anger, not directed at anyone. It's based on frustration.
A lot of times it's directed at yourself.
Right, directed at myself. And the frustration is usually time bound. You have other reactions. Yours, often relate to security and also, speculating worst case scenarios.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, it is. That's correct.
And so between the two of them, we're just, I'm a shadow. She's a shadow. We show up in our shadow worlds, doing our shadow work in a shadow world. And that shadow, that false self, that fictional self, is just going to react a certain way. What we want to find out is that this is a fictional self. That's what I want to find out.
Yes.
And I don't find that out by making that fictional self suddenly behave like a saint.
Right.
The fictional self now, I come down squarely on my thumb with a hammer and I go, all is one. I'm forgiven. That's not the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is to see what game I'm involved in, to find out who I think I am.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there are some key words in here. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but to choose to change your mind about the world. Perception is a result and not a cause.
Okay, and let's stay with that one. Don't steamroll.
Yeah, okay.
Perception is a result. It's an effect.
Right.
Perception is an effect, not a cause. Now, perception, I perceive a pain. It causes me to do things.
Correct.
So what is it saying here? Because actually, I really, too, let's be honest, that's what we said, self-honesty. Honestly, I look at the perceptive world, I see something that I find repugnant. There's a situation I want to avoid.
Right.
I'm making it causal.
Yes.
Because I go around it.
Yeah, and it's something outside that is perceived as oftentimes as a threat or something else, as something like you said, I need to avoid. There's usually just these ideas. It's like, I'm not going to go that way. I mean, some of it seems like great judgment.
Okay, we know we do that, but let's dial in for a second. I know I'm spending a lot of time on this paragraph 1.
Go ahead.
But this dial in on my perceptive world, the world I perceive, whether it's the stub toe, and my body as the interpreter.
Yes.
That calls it either pleasure or pain. The body is calling it either pleasure or pain.
And it's actually not the body, but it's the ego who thinks that the body it owns. But anyway,
the body is a litmus paper. The body shows up as either too alkaline or too acid. It just shows up pink or blue, pink or blue. That's what the body does. You can't control it. As we discussed with the Tibetan monk who was meditating side by side with some dark op, super soldier. And the dark op super soldier hears the gunshot and he flinches. The Tibetan monk does not. And yet both of them are wired the same way. They both get the spike of perceptual reality. But the monk has reinterpreted his reality, while the super soldier is trying to control his reaction. The super soldier has been trained to control his reactions. Right. That is impossible.
Right.
It is impossible. Whereas the monk's training is to reinterpret, and he hears the sound as far away. Far away.
Right.
The super soldier says, gunshot, brace yourself, don't flinch, be a hero. I don't know what goes on in their minds.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying.
But clinically, they came up with 2 different kinds of reactions. So what I'm saying is that I show up as a certain thing. You show up as a certain thing.
Right.
A certain reaction comes to me. Take my daughter. My daughter. She's got this Buddha face. It's like stuff hits her. You'd say, wow, that's not making an impact at all. She might be a raging storm of reactivity a couple of steps in. And so it's a mistake to think that she's not reacting.
I see, yeah.
And
just because my perception upon her or something says,
because if I hit my hammer... I
gave it the meaning.
Yeah, just because if I hit my hand with a hammer and I scream and cuss all over the yard doesn't mean I'm experiencing more intensity than she does. And it doesn't even mean that there's a qualitative difference, like she's got, let's say, a handle. That's a different kind of person. I just,
yes.
I noticed when I met you that you had, you have more nerve-ring, they call it, in your iris. I said, well, Joanna's reactive. I mean, I just look in your iris and see that you've got a lot of white fibers in the iris. That, if you get into iridology...
Sensitive.
Well, you get into iridology and you can see that people with a very smooth iris, they have a very smooth temperament.
Okay.
They have a smooth temperament. And people with a lot of action in their iris, sometimes, like, let's say, movie stars with these blue eyes and these white fibers, and they're beautiful, and you're just captivated because they have literally stars in their eyes. They're very reactive. They're a nervous wreck, overtly. Very beautiful, but it indicates that the nerves are like close to the surface. It doesn't. That's just what that shadow self is bringing to their world, and that also then has to do with the way the curriculum in terms of the Course in Miracles, the way the curriculum appears to me. In my honesty, I can't compare myself to somebody that's not reactive.
Right.
I have to compare myself to me. And I have to know what is underneath all of my reactivity. The truth is about me, and not compare myself through some sense of control.
Right.
So anyway, this thing that you read, perception is a result, not a cause. This is worth hanging on to and thinking about, because I'm a certain amount of my life, I'm on pins and needles, waiting for the causes around me to send me off into some journey.
Right.
And the Course is saying, no, you don't understand. That journey you just went on because the hot water heater exploded or whatever, that journey you went on, you did it. That's your journey. You chose that journey.
Right.
You chose that journey. The hot water heater didn't do it to you. In a sense, hot water heater is just saying, hey, this is what's going on with you.
Right. And you know what, that reminds me of a time when I was younger, and I was traveling on the highway, and I don't remember what I was angry about, but I was fuming. And I'm driving along, and lo and behold, I blew out a tire. I just blew out the tire on the side of the road. Luckily, it was close to the entrance ramp. But I realized that, wow, I think I might have caused that in my emotions. It was kind of, I was raging on the inside, and I don't usually rage on the inside, but I was definitely angry about something. Okay,
but that brings up something. That brings up something that has to be, I think, has to be appreciated about this. The nature of this world that we're in. Your tire blows out. I did that. I blew up the tire. It was an outpicturing of a temper tantrum that I was having. But always, 24/7.
It's happening.
But we're in partnership with the Holy Spirit, whether we know it or not.
Right.
So you blow out the tire. We're in a partnership with Spirit, whether we know it or not. And that if you are going to do damage to this vehicle that's only here to find the truth, I'm not going to be punished for that curriculum that I have to do. In other words, I have a curriculum based on what this shadow self is, the certain kinds of reactivities it has to the causes that I project onto the outside world that are actually just an outpicturing of me. You see the fixed word. We're trying to realize that I got control over this thing.
Right.
By
my inner nature, so shall my world.
You know what I said? I got control over this thing. The point is, you got to realize I don't have control over this thing. But I am in that relationship with it, and to realize that I don't want to be the butt end of my inherited karmas in the form of what this body shows up as. Does that make sense? I don't want to be at the butt end of how I happen to be Scotch-Irish with Hungarian, Austro-Hungarian roots, and a certain collective.
So you're saying that those would have cause then in the mind. It says because of that, then I'm reactive. Or
those things, those things set this shadow self up. Mm-hmm. Those are shadows of the past, shadows of genetics, shadows of the laws of biology. I'm under no laws but God's.
Right.
And yet this shadow self is constructed out of so many laws of genetics and collective karmas.
The meanings that we've given them.
Right, and and those meanings, I don't even apply to them really. Some of them, like if this shadow self, if this shadow self was involved genetically, but not physically, but genetically in, let's say, the Holodomor in the 1915 or 17 or whenever it was, when all those people were slaughtered and tortured and starved and whatnot in Eastern Europe, Russia.
Yes.
If I have an inheritance of a lineage of scarred, DNA tissue reactivity that comes forward and then is in me, or so for some reason I am irrationally terrified of being impaled, or irrationally terrified of being buried alive, or these kinds of things, is to be honest about these things and not try to control it, whatever these fears are. So I'd name some extreme ones. There's some that aren't so extreme. Some is just life is pointless. It doesn't matter what I do. Those are also inherited sometimes. I didn't do those. It's not like I studied that and learned it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, but are you making meaning out of our inheritance? I'm trying to understand where you're going with it.
What I'm saying is that if the point of this section and the point of me going into it is projection makes perception. Right. In other words, I am more like a camera casting images on a neutral screen of the world.
Right.
But what's casting those images? It's karmas and influences within me that are part of my shadow self, the ego. They're part of this construct.
Right.
And that construct then casts it onto the world. If I try to control those things, literally control them like a sense of power, like I have agency, I'm going to fail.
Right. We cannot do that alone. I agree. And as soon as we stay, there's all kind of therapies and stuff like that can help us through, those kinds of fears and everything. But ultimately, we have to recognize that I choose to either be a victim or a victor or whatever as we go through things, by the way I think of things, and by the way
Joanna,
I
this is the other point. You said, and this is what, and I'll get off of it. How I get on a jag. I'm on one. You know how you say, I choose this and I choose that. That whole chooser, the chooser in me, is also a product of forces that it doesn't understand.
Right.
And so the things that it chooses, its thresholds of pain and discomfort, its longing for pleasure or avoidance, those are often not my work. I'm literally a shadow, and I did not inherit the outline. I did not cause the outline of this shadow. That's why it's important to partner with the Holy Spirit. That's why the Course in Miracles is so incredibly valuable. It's not think and grow rich. Right. It's not as a man thinketh. It's not Dr. Murphy with psychocybernetics. It's saying I need to project this shadow self and empty it.
That's right.
Empty the shadow self of meaning.
Well, that's where we need to
What I'm saying is I have all those meanings, right?
Yes.
What I'm saying is I can't just say I'm empty of meaning, therefore, because I'm experiencing meanings coming at me from this crazy projector that's projecting onto the world all over the place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that it doesn't really help me or anybody if I try to say, Phil, you got to get a hold of that, man. You got to get that tiger by the tail. You got to get a grip on your anger. You got to get a grip on your fears. You got to get a grip. No, you say, wow, this is what's showing up. This is the curriculum. And partner with the only teacher. And it's my yoke is easy, my burden is light.
Yes.
And partner with the Holy Spirit to try and see the wisdom of that reactive shadow self. It's here for a reason. It's interacting with other people. It's in partnership with other curricula. That's
right.
why it shows up that way.
Right. And it shows up because we have those particular thoughts.
I mean, I like you the way you are. Let's say you got a hold of yourself with a big ego, and you could like control yourself in a certain way. As though you could, like you were putty, like Play-Doh, and you could just mash yourself into some psychic configuration. Well, then you'd have the power to, quote unquote, change yourself. I think it's a bad idea because I like you the way you are.
That's right. We're all human and we're going to have faults.
Okay, paragraph 2. Damnation is your judgment on yourself, and this you will project upon the world. See it as damned, and all you see is what you did to hurt the Son of God. If you behold disaster and catastrophe, you tried to crucify him. If you see holiness and hope, you joined the will of God to set him free. There's no choice that lies between these two decisions, and you will see the witness to the choice you made and learn from this to recognize which one you chose. The world you see but shows you how much joy you have allowed yourself to see in you and to accept as yours. And if this is its meaning, then the power to give it joy must lie within you. I hear it as I'm reading it. I'm reading it with many people's interpretation, including my own at different times. There's a part of me that wants to say, a joyful world looking back at me means I'm joyful. Therefore, I need to be looking at abundance. I need to be looking at prosperity. I need to be looking at even-mindedness. I need to be looking at quality friends and quality relationships and quality environments. And, that's narcissism. That I am not the center of the world. What it is I look at the world, boom, like it is, and go, sweet Jesus, this is great. It doesn't change. The change is only in my ability to confer joy on what I see.
Right.
It doesn't mean I'm changing what I see.
Right. No, it is St. Francis
what do you
kissing
think?
The leper.
Yeah.
It really is that moment where the leper doesn't change. He changes his mind about the leper, and he experiences extreme joy in recognizing that the thing that I thought I needed to be afraid of is the Christ himself. He sees it is the veil has dropped and there's no separation there, or something happens. I don't know exactly what happened with St. Francis, but it is a moment where that which I was afraid of, appalled by, could almost throw up if I ever saw it, and something happens that allows that perception to change, and all the fears drop, and you can actually walk over there, kiss that person, hug them, and realize that this is Christ. This is the Holy Son of God.
It's called the Holy Instant.
It is the Holy Instant.
The Holy Relationship, the Holy Instant, the miracle. That's what it is. And that does not source within me, in a sense.
Right.
Within the me.
No, it doesn't. No, it comes from somewhere else. It comes from that moment that you said where I empty myself.
Yeah.
And I allow for the other to be revealed. The other meaning the real. And most of the time we prejudge, and then it confirms our judgment. We will be either afraid or joyful based on my judgment upon it. So, it could even be a type of a meal. I can say, oh, I really don't like that particular thing. You've had a bad experience with it or whatever. And another time you go out, it has to do with the company and everything else. You're eating the same thing that you despised, and it all tastes good. It's you with the cigarette smoke.
Yeah, right.
When you talk about your ex-wife and everything else, where you said, it didn't bother you with certain things and everything else, and other times you're just appalled by it, based on your mind.
Sometimes when I was standing with her and she was smoking her ritual cigarette, I could almost smell the freedom that it represented for her. That it was her sense of being away from the world and protected in that kind of a smoke shield. You light up a cigarette and you're alone. That's one of the principles, what I've noticed about cigarette smokers. But other times when I was ticked off at her about something or irritated or frustrated, it gave me a migraine.
Yeah. So those are good examples. At any rate, that's what happens. Damnation is your judgment on yourself, and this you will project upon the world. So being aware of our thoughts is absolutely key to releasing, saying, at the very least, say, my judgment is not helping me, and therefore I want a new interpretation, which means I will let go of it.
I'm in relation to the world. Plus, I recognize I'm chattering. Okay, if anybody wants to know when I'm going to let her talk, I apologize right now. It'll calm down.
Yes.
It will. I'm aware. So, but when I'm in this world, and here's my what I'm perceiving. Here's me, and I'm at loggerheads, and I'm bashing into it. It's hopeless. There's no commonality there. Like Saint Francis and the leper.
Yeah.
A leper is ugly and rotten. Saint Francis is a saint. They don't mix. What happens is Saint Francis is in communion with the Christ.
Yes, he is.
And when that happens, the leper opens like this and actually confers a blessing on Saint Francis, because Saint Francis becomes boundless.
Yeah.
Saint Francis, you realize what was once the boundary of, I find that repugnant.
Yes.
That smells bad, it looks bad, it's frightening. But the leper opens and says, I receive you. And because St. Francis was willing.
Right.
That's the willingness.
That is the willingness.
And then they're like this, and they're in communion. So yes. St. Francis has become boundless. It's not like he swallowed hard and then kissed a leper and said, no. Took care of that one.
Yeah, what a good boy am I.
Yeah. No,
it wasn't that. I know.
No, he's expanded by that leper.
Absolutely.
The leper expands his reality. Yeah. And that feeling of expansion is him in communion with the Christ.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the miracle. That's the holy instant.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the intro. And now we're on the section 1, the forgotten song. Never forget the world the sightless, quote, see, but must be imagined. For what it really looks like is unknown to them. They must infer what could be seen from evidence forever indirect, and reconstruct their inferences as they stumble and fall because of what they did not recognize, or walk unharmed through open doorways that they thought were closed. And so it is with you. You do not see. Your cues for inference were wrong, and so you stumble and fall down upon the stones you did not recognize, but fail to be aware you can go through the doors you thought were closed, but which stand open before unseeing eyes waiting to welcome you. So this one here, it's actually calling us sightless. We don't really see, and that the world we see is imagined. And now I had to ask you earlier, because I don't use this word inference very much, but you said it is it's what we project, or how did you interpret that?
Well, the etymology is fer, F-E-R, it means carry. Mm-hmm. So offer, fur is in it. So any interference, fur means carry. So infer means to project on, is to lay on. Okay. I'm carrying, so that something I'm looking at, I have to make an inference of what it means. In other words, I lay a meaning on top of it. That's
great. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, because I thought if I have a little bit of trouble with language or vocabulary, that other people might as well. So it's something that they must infer. So whatever I lay upon, what could be seen from evidence forever indirect, and reconstruct their inferences as they stumble and fall because of what they did not recognize, or walk unharmed through open doorways that they thought were closed. And then it says, and so it is with it. So it compares us to a blind person, and then that we cannot see that there's an open door awaiting us.
Tell me one. Give me an open door that is closed. That it's actually open. I could walk right through it, but I don't, because I think it's closed.
Well, the closed doors are the judgments that I lay upon that other person, that situation, that global event, whatever it is.
What happens when you open that?
It doesn't the door open. What happens is I'm aware of the open door, and I can walk through it. It's I would say it's that moment when you said where Saint Francis and the leper are become the one, where the recognition that it is no longer the other.
I experience communion.
Yeah, it's communion. So so if I want to actually have eyes to see, that's real vision, then I have to lay down those judgments. I have to lay down those grievances. Even for an instant. A lot of times the Course says it's just a moment. We act as if it's some giant thing that I have to do. But it's saying, will you give me a little bit of room, just a little bit, and I will answer you. And I found that to be so for myself. I found that, and sometimes it can bring me to tears, certain situations and everything else. If I'm really frustrated, or I feel like and nothing can go right in a situation, if I will just take a deep breath and let go as much as I can, and call upon the Holy Spirit, call upon Jesus, call upon the that which I know is divine, which is my divinity as well, and that often will leave that moment that peace will dawn upon my mind.
I want to say it's not necessary for me to understand that I'm laying something down, because that could be my curriculum, to be enslaved by a certain inference. I'm enslaved. I can't. It won't let go of my mind.
Right.
The barking dog, the pain issue. Holy cow! The certain kinds of physical manifestations that result in just a weak-kneed panic.
Then what do you do to get a change of mind?
Well, first of all, I agree completely with what you're saying, but I've been in so many situations to where, as I was talking about that stuff in the first paragraph, the fiber of what this shadow self is, sometimes it looks at the situation and it just goes, I'm broken. I'm dominated by this perception. Right. I'm dominated by this perception, and that there is no room. There's no room for laying down anything. That weapon is firmly in my hand. And so at that point, I say, as you said, the degree of willingness I might have might be, this has got to be wrong.
Yeah, it's such a little fraction.
This has got to be wrong. This has got to be wrong. And think on the alternative intelligence, the alternative one that knows both sides.
Right.
And then wait and watch for things to change.
Right.
But I'm telling you, so many times I've been dominated by a situation, and they aren't harrowing. I mean, I'm not in any kind. No,
mine aren't either.
They're minor,
but they can really.
Right? But they
ruminate. You get stuck with them; they'll keep you up all night. Yeah.
Okay. Paragraph 2. How foolish is it to attempt to judge what could be seen instead? It is not necessary to imagine what the world must look like. It must be seen before you recognize it for what it is. You can be shown which doors are open, and you can see where safety lies, and which way leads to darkness, which to light. Judgment will always give you false directions, but vision shows you where to go. Why should you guess?
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of me looking on a nasty world and then forcing goodness onto it.
It's not. The change of mind is not because I say, well, I'm just going to change my mind about this and then it will change. No, I mean, that's just my ego getting involved again. It says judgment will always give you false directions. So again, what is my judgment? And then I don't even have to ask that. All I need to know is that I am judging, and I'm having a hold on my judgment, a righteousness, and if I want to have vision, I have to for a moment say, maybe I'm not right.
Maybe I'm not right.
Maybe it's not that way.
The chronic pain, the terminal situation that I see. Let's say it's a political situation. Some dragon breathing hot fumes down my neck about finances or work or relationship. It just to recognize I don't have it in my power to not see the dragon or to not feel the hot fumes breathing down my neck. I don't have the ability to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all I do is violence to myself and the other by trying to adjust my attitudes about politics or about, you know, like this, let's say, looming wars or whatever your pet nightmare is.
Right.
I might not be able to lay it down, but there's something poignant and beautiful in that weakness. I don't mean to drag in the Bible, but Paul said, in my weakness is my strength.
That's right.
That's what he meant. Right. It's like, because what happens is I finally meet a wall. I can't reperceive that. I can't reconfigure that situation. And so you just recognize the wall honestly without adjusting it.
Right.
And then you call on the one who takes that wall and turns it into those intermeshing apparent qualities. Yeah. But it's out of time and space.
Right. It always forms wholeness. The peace creates a wholeness, but all of it is a sense that wholeness has returned. There's not, the other is not the separation anymore. It's as we've said, it's like a communion where something dawns on you, and because of that, there's an easing up, and the judgment drops. That's all that needs to happen, and the rest of it, you just look for the happy witnesses. Okay, there is no, paragraph 3, there is no need to learn through pain. The gentle lessons are acquired joyously and are remembered gladly. What gives you happiness you want to learn and not forget. It is not this you would deny. Your question is whether the means by which this course is learned will bring to you the joy it promises. If you believed it would, the learning of it would be no problem. You are not a happy learner, yet because you still remain uncertain that vision gives you more than judgment does, and you have learned that both you cannot have.
So just don't reread it, but it's, you're not a happy learner yet. Not yet because. Anyway, we're not yet a happy learner.
Right.
We're still in our happy learner, meaning that my misperceptions, you know, the inferences I make on the world, the nightmares, the difficulties, that I welcome them, and that it actually brings me joy to have those nightmares come at me, because every nightmare I perceive is an invitation, potential invitation to the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I'm not there. You know, it's like the hot water heater. If the bottom falls out, it's like my first reaction isn't, you know, thank God, you know, for this. You know, no, I'm freaked. Yeah. I'm freaked, and I've got no control over that situation. There's certain things, like I said.
Yeah, no, same with me. Yeah, but it does say that our fear is that vision is that judgment gives me more than my vision does. Like, that letting go of my judgment will somehow, I will lose control. If I let go of my judgment, you know, what am I? We associate our judgments, our perceptions, with all the ways that we think. That's our personality. Those are the things that make us up, our ideas about different things. And so the idea that I let those go so that vision is restored, it's naturally there. That's the thing of it is. It is like the scales that fall from the eyes. If I will let that judgment down for an instant isn't very long, then I can actually have a moment of insight, of true vision. And I've noticed lately, because through the lessons, we're going through the lessons all over again the second time. And some days I just struggle with it. And I notice that even my dreamscape and everything else, I'm struggling through, you know, being able to see in a snowstorm or something. And so I'm struggling with the ability to relax. Relax, Joanne. It's going to be okay if you just relax. To be with God, with the Holy Spirit, is a joyous occasion. But there's this, you know, it says repeatedly that as you approach the light, sometimes the fears become greater, you know. because it is a dismantling of the ego. It just is. And so I'm recognizing these days of tension and then days of release and then days of sort of like, why am I on edge? And then days where I feel relaxed about anything almost. It's just like, no, the day is in God's hands. And other days I'm like freaking out. So I don't know what it is, but right now my whole emotional scape feels a little wavy. And it's because of these, because I'm losing a sense of the self that feels like I have good judgment on the world. But I've always been a good judger. I could judge people. I can judge my situations.
Yeah, part of your good judgment is that you're doing the Course in Miracles. Hey, you're a good judge. You know what kind of book to pick
all
up.
All of those things. And then you say, maybe those judgments aren't helping me to see at all. And that's it's been a little bit of a challenge for me. That's all I'm going to say. It's been a little bit of a challenge.
You know, there's a movie I saw when I was a little kid. You might know it's sort of a classic movie. Maybe guys who might have seen it, called The Red Balloon. And in The Red Balloon, a kid, I don't remember the detail, obviously. It's been a mere, several decades since I ever watched it. Kid's walking, he's got a balloon. So he's got this red balloon, and he has it by a string, right? So helium balloon, let's say, helium balloon. But it ends up being his friend. The kid is sort of ostracized by a group of other kids. And so you watch the movie, and it's about the interplay of the balloon and the kid, and ironically, their growing relationship between the kid and his balloon. I guess the reason I bring it up is because if I view my judgment as like a string that's holding me to the perceptive world,
Right.
In other words, that balloon is up there, and that's my view of the world, and I want to have my judgment. It's on a string, and I've got control over it. That's a certain sort of a bondage. I like in the red balloon,
right.
It's a bondage. But the balloon, at some point, the kid's being chased by bullies, and they want to get at his balloon. They want to pop the balloon. The balloon knows this. So the kid's running and running and running to escape these bullies. And the balloon is like jerking out of his hand. And the balloon gets free and goes away, so that now the kid is no longer a target for the bullies.
Right.
Because the balloon is gone. But the balloon comes back. So our sense, and this would be the Holy Spirit in terms of, just because I let go of my judgment on the perceptual world, what happens is the perceptual world, I've granted it freedom.
Yes. Yeah, that's what
I've granted the perceptual world freedom. I've still got it. It's not going to float off into the stratosphere.
I agree. Yeah. It's just not...
it comes back as
not threatening.
Ally.
Yeah, it's not threatening. Yeah. Okay, paragraph 4.
The blind become accustomed to their world by their adjustments to it. They think they know their way about in it. They learned it, not through joyous lessons, but through the stern necessity of limits they believed they could not overcome. And still believing this, they hold those lessons dear and cling to them because they cannot see. They do not understand the lessons keep them blind. This they do not believe. And so they keep the world they learned to see in their imagination, believing that their choice is that or nothing. They hate the world they learned through pain, and everything they think is in it serves to remind them that they are incomplete and bitterly deprived. This is the bind. If I go back to the red balloon, say I'm a child and I have this beautiful red balloon. I love the balloon as a captive. But you can see the great anguish when the balloon flies away. And there's something wonderful about a helium balloon. A regular air balloon isn't going to run away.
Right.
But helium balloons do. But you want the helium balloon but then it's always trying to get away from you.
That's true.
So there is a kind of a love-hate relationship between me and the balloon, meaning the perceptual world.
Right.
So
right. No, I can see that. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that.
Well, I learned from, it says here that I'm accustomed to learning through pain. I'm accustomed to learning through judgment. And yet when I learn through pain and judgment, I have that, ambivalent relationship of really liking the world, liking experiences, enjoying pleasures, but fearing the loss of pleasures, fearing overdoing pleasures, fearing that, so I'm always in an antagonistic kind of a challenging relationship with the perceptive world.
Yeah.
And it's saying if you let this go, of course, like I said, a lot of times the perceptive world has me like this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I can always just let it go, but there has to be the realization that I'm a tyrannical taskmaster, judge over my world, and that serves neither of us.
Right.
It doesn't serve the world out there, and it doesn't help me. So what do you think?
I'm trying to think of what else was in this that that we don't learn through the joyous lessons.
Learning this world
because we're clinging to those judgments that are part of our identity.
All of the learning that we do keeps us blind. That's what it just got through saying. All of the tricks of the trade, the adult insights, the clever reinterpretations and adjustments that I have, I might as well be gouging my eyes out.
Right.
It blinds me to the real nature of the world. Right. I end up seeing a world that I have fabricated.
Right. No, I agree with that. Yeah. I think that's good.
Okay.
I'm going to go on. Thus, they define their life and where they live, adjusting to it as they think they must, afraid to lose the little that they have. And so it is with all who see the body as all they have and all their brothers have. They try to reach each other, and they fail and fail again, and they adjust to loneliness, believing that to keep the body is to save the little that they have. Listen, and try to think if you remember what we will speak of now. So this is just reinforcing that, so long as I have that we're adjusting through these experiences of pain and things like that, we're inundated that I'm a body, my brothers are bodies, and so there's this constant separation. And they adjust to loneliness, believing that to keep the body is to save the little that they have. Yeah, because you can feel it when I can feel it sometimes when I'm practicing, diligently with this, that there is a sense that I'm going to lose something, I'm going to lose something as I open and allow for more of the Holy Spirit and more of that action in my life. And so,
using the balloon analogy, you do lose something.
Yeah.
You lose your, what do you call it? Your role of tyrannical dictator.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You lose it.
Right.
You're no longer
yes.
Caligula over your own life.
Yeah.
Now you have a free relationship with the perceptive world, and you're afraid that it's going to torture you and beat you, and you're afraid that it's going to do to you what you really did to it, which is keep it in a stranglehold all the time. You're afraid that it's going to now keep you in a stranglehold. And that's why you want to, it's like choke or be choked, kill or be killed.
Right.
And if you let it go, you have a friend.
Yeah.
Is what happens. If you let it go, it's the whole Khalil Gibran thing, if you want to keep your friends, let them go kind of a thing. It's boy, that's a trusting soul.
Uh-huh. Right.
And then we kind of don't believe that that's really good for anybody.
Right.
You got to keep a little bit of skin in the game. There has to be a little bit of coercion and blackmail going on, or you just can't make it stick.
Right. Yeah. And it reinforces that a special relationship, so long as I want to keep it special and not call upon it to become holy, that, we try to reach for each other and we fail and fail again, because no one can suffice to meet all of our needs, all of our ideas of what we think the other in a special relationship should be for myself or for you or whatever. When you're in a relationship as a parent, or a relationship as, husband, wife, or just boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever your relationships are, in friendships with same sex, doesn't matter. All of them are special unless, and then I think I'm grasping at that other to create my wholeness as if that is going to fulfill it. And it will always fail. and I will fail them as well. So long as they're looking for me for wholeness, it cannot happen. This is the forgotten song. Listen. Perhaps you catch a hint of an ancient state not quite forgotten, dim perhaps and yet not altogether unfamiliar, like a song whose name is long forgotten and the circumstances in which you heard completely unremembered. Not the whole song has stayed with you, but just a little wisp of melody attached not to a person or a place or anything particular. But you remember, from just this little part, how lovely was the song, how wonderful the setting where you heard it, and how you loved those who were there and listened with you. The notes are nothing, yet you have kept them with you, not for themselves, but as a soft reminder of what would make you weep if you remembered how dear it was to you. You could remember, yet you are afraid, believing you would lose the world you learned since then. And yet you know that nothing in the world you learned is half so dear as this. Listen, and see if you remember an ancient song you knew so long ago and held more dear than any melody you taught yourself to cherish since. Beyond the body, beyond the sun and stars, past everything you see and yet somehow familiar, is an arc of golden light that stretches as you look into a great and shining circle. And all the circle fills with light before your eyes. The edges of the circle disappear, and what is in it is no longer contained at all. The light expands and covers everything, extending to infinity, forever shining and with no break or limit anywhere. Within it, everything is joined in perfect continuity, nor is it possible to imagine that anything could be outside, for there is nowhere that this light is not.
I was talking about this forgotten song. I think it's important. On the one hand, the Course waxes into Jesus, or who the author waxes into these sort of poetic passages. I think it's important not to space out and just say, hey, wow, that's really pretty, and just to read it as inspired verse, but to try to understand this forgotten song. I have a suggestion that, and the Course said this, I kind of picked it up recently in one of the lessons, I think. When I have a genuine moment of peace, when I have a genuine moment of connection with another, it could be, the proverbial goo-goo baby moment, or it could be a, dinner with a friend, or it's just a sense of wholeness where you settle in. It could be a quiet day, beautiful weather, where for an instant you go, wow, the weather's perfect. And you use that word perfect.
Yes.
And they go away. It comes and it goes. I would say that according to the Course in Miracles, according to this metaphysical treatise, or whatever you want to call it, it's not really possible for us to come to those whole states in this world. So that those are holy instants, those are visitations of the forgotten song.
Right. To me, it's when I read it aloud and everything else, I actually feel an inner calling to remember. I feel something egging me on, saying, don't you want to remember? I mean, it actually almost makes me cry. There's these beautiful moments in the Course. This and like the Little Garden, and there's some other ones. But the Forgotten Song is so beautifully written. It's almost like you could record even your own voice saying it and everything else, or you just could listen to, if it was good enough, the way I said it, and listen to it again, because it's asking for something. And it's asking so little in that remembrance. It's asking so little of us. And to me, because of its poeticness, because of the way it's written, I actually can feel myself letting go a little bit, letting go and saying, why not? Why not remember? What am I afraid of? You know, there's this just moments with it that it beckons. It's a beckoning. Don't you want to remember the song? Don't you want to go home? And so I find it extremely moving, these places. You know, there's not many places. Most of it is teaching us, but there are these poetic places in the Course that stand alone and are just, I don't know, for me, they're treasures. And so that's how I experience it. I don't know how anyone else experiences it.
When in paragraph 8, beyond the body, beyond the sun and stars, past everything you see, and yet somehow familiar, is an arc of golden light that stretches as you look into a great and shining circle. And all the circle fills with light before your eyes. The edges of the circle disappear. What is in it no longer is contained. What is in it no longer contained at all. So there's this arc of light is, let's say, my true reality. Mm-hmm. The arc of light is my true self. And I look at it as though it's beyond me, mm-hmm. beyond the moon, the stars, past Jupiter, out in the mm-hmm. galaxy somewhere, past the Horsehead Nebula. And it's an arc, like so, like this, of light. And then I see it forms a circle. And it's as though when the circle touches, it loses its edges as a contained thing that's out there.
Right.
And it becomes something that I'm included in. And so what's happening is that arc of memory is completed. The time-space component of dreaming about this forgotten song, like looking like it's in my memory banks somewhere. It's in my perceptual experience. It becomes
a now moment.
Somewhere, yeah.
It becomes now.
It clicks into a now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's worth the exercise. Maybe this is a guided meditation.
Right. I consider it like a guided meditation. Interestingly enough, that arc of light and the circle and everything else is expressed in near-death experiences of people who have recorded what happened to them and there's a lot of them on YouTube, which I like to look at once in a while as reminders of the world that is here but is not available. Well, only based on my perception is that world is still. And everyone feels like they went home. They go, gosh, and they don't want to come back. But here they are, back in the body. And anyway, that it reminds me of those places. But this is a call, and I think it could easily be a guided meditation that listen to. You can just sit in quiet and just listen to it and then see where it takes you. That's all I can say. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful writing.
There's something here that also there's an implied sense of discrimination, meaning in Sanskrit it's viveka, mm-hmm. Which is a sharp distinction of not good from bad, but just to understand the edges of what you're seeing. So that when I'm examining myself, I'm examining my life, I'm sort of going through the process of judgment. Mm-hmm. I'm judging this from that. That's that viveka. That's that, what do they call it? Anyway, it's a form of discrimination. I can't remember the exact interpretation. And when I'm looking at the elements, the things I've experienced in my life, mm-hmm. and trying to seek this out, because I'm afraid that if I don't use my own life as the fodder for this exercise, if I don't look at my own life experiences, and this might be one of the baseless fears it's talking about in different places, that if I don't use it, my own experiences, I tend to space out, and I don't go anywhere. I end mm-hmm. up I end up in some nether region of nothingness, and mm-hmm. and yet if I cling to the things that have form, like I said, that one time you looked in someone's eyes, that one time you had an experience with a child, or that mm-hmm. you saw something that moved you in a certain way, and you go into that as a doorway, mm-hmm. a doorway into this timeless space. Don't accept it as what your judgment is of beautiful scene.
Right.
Don't be deceived by
right.
the sentimental beauty of the scene, but using viveka, you realize, cutting through, this is a doorway into this timeless.
Yes.
And that they are there, and that they're all over the place, and that's what I'm trying to make.
And that was earlier in this writing also. I think that this arc of light and the circle and everything is the doorway that it's saying is available, that it's right there. If I will let those judgments, those grievances and things to be suspended long enough so that it's revealed. It's just there. It's always been there.
So go on, paragraph 9. You want me to read it?
Yeah.
This is the vision of the Son of God whom you know well. Here's the sight of him who knows his Father. Here's the memory of what you are, a part of this, with all of it within, and joined to all as surely as all is joined in you. Accept the vision that can show you this, and not the body. You know the ancient song, and know it well. Nothing will ever be as dear to you as is this ancient hymn of love the Son of God sings to his Father still.
Wow. Yeah.
And again, as beautiful as it is, this is what came to mind. It flashed into my mind a very painful situation where a friend of mine was in a car wreck. He was basically a vegetable, and I went and visited him in the hospital. And it was a very, very sordid scene. And that remains with me as a painful and difficult, almost a curse of vision, a curse of relationship. Now, I'm going to say that because...
You were a teenager at the time.
Yeah, I was 15, or 14, 15. There are a lot of circumstances to it that made it a very, very difficult situation. And traumatic in a sense. Now what happens is, let's forget Phil's judgments of the scene, of being traumatic, difficult, painful, blah, 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 inappropriate, whatever I want to lay on it, and just say it's powerful. And it is powerful. I have to admit it. It's not powerful.
Right.
It's a powerful moment. Painful and traumatic now, to my judgment, but powerful. Let's drop everything else and just say, there's power there. And that's a door that I think is closed. It's actually open.
Right.
I can walk through that.
Wait, because you felt like there was an unforgiveness or an unhealed.
It's problematic. It creates pain.
Yeah, it's an unhealed moment.
There's no beauty there.
Right.
There's no beauty there. The door's closed.
Right.
The door of beauty, the door to the sonship, the door to...
Yeah, and there's no time, space. So all those memories of things that seem unfinished.
But what I'm saying is, there's power there. There's power there. And as powerful, it's of God.
Okay. Yeah.
It's of the Spirit. If there's power there, you have to admit to yourself there's power there. Just because I have judgment and I want to say it's evil, it's traumatic, it shouldn't have happened, somebody else should have fixed it. That's all my work. Lay my work aside, of how I judge that situation, and say there's power there. And this would be true of any, because often the difficult situations are the most powerful. It's nice to think about babies and their feet and their goo-goos, but a lot of times it's the difficult ones that are those doors that are closed. We think. It said it. We're blind. We assume they're not closed, and so we don't go through.
Right.
So when I see Steve there with the tubes coming out of his nose and his eyes all cockeyed and all this weird hospital scene, very awkward, and I had no way to manage it, I can say, power is given to me then that is a doorway for me now. It was just difficult then in time space. But now I can say, with this, with learning, I can say there's power there. Therefore, it's a door.
And so how would you use that? How would you take that and make it so there's power there now?
I would see, I would go into it, and I would say, there's Steve. the bubbles. His mother's there very strangely. We're in the hospital room. I'm standing with Tom to my left, and we're both looking at it going, holy shit. This is weird. Mm-hmm. This guy that we used to hang out with is now something else. Right. He has turned into something else, and we don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to manage it. And the mom, just to give you a sense of the macabre, she goes, Steve, show him what you can do. Show him what you can do, Steve. She's trying to get through that fog that he's in. Mm-hmm. And she goes, show him what you can do. And his big toe goes like this. Mm-hmm. And she's celebrating. Right. And Tom and I are going, whoa. Yeah. Right. For some reason, I don't want to pop the cork. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It threw us into the twilight zone. Right. So, and that's what we walked out with, and there was no processing, no clarity, no closure, and it just dangled like a bloody limb for decades. Mm-hmm. And then what Steve became as a mental illness, there's no happy ending here. Right. Okay. No happy ending. So how do I use it? I'm telling you the grim part because those are the fears, but you can hear in my voice and in my memory, it's powerful. Mm-hmm. It's powerful. Right. And you have to say, all power is from God and for a reason and has a purpose. And now with learning this, I can say, I'm a blind man, and I keep seeing that doorway of power that's been created. Because why? Because most of the doors in the perceptive world, many, many, many doors in this perceptive world are not the good meal, the communion, the champagne toast with friends, the weddings. No, they're grim, they're deadly, they're horrible, they're the leper. Yes. The leper. I agree. It's power. Yes. Power. 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 Right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is, in visualization, I see Steve there as a leper, let's say. Mm-hmm. He's all hooked up to tubes. His eyes are all cockeyed, and he's laying there. And to receive a blessing from him that I have never, and it says it here, it's my choice to find joy. I create the joy in this partnership. Mm-hmm. So what was once a horrible scene, I have the agency in this partnership and in this learning of the Course to go back to that scene and to see the tubes and to see Steve as an avatar. He came in that bizarre moment to create this doorway for me now. And as he's blessed, he's that balloon that's released. Right. I release him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true forgiveness.
And he releases me.
Yeah, that is what it is. Yeah.
Now it happened, 50 years ago or more. Uh-huh. Yeah. It's ancient.
Right.
So, but the nowness of it, anyway, I feel that. Yeah. And I'm not just sort of blowing smoke. I'm saying to recognize that these are real, this poetry and all this. Don't get lost in the poetry. Mm-hmm. And recognize that the power of this love song. Well, what would enable me to see a doorway in this situation? Mm-hmm. It's that love song. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that enables it. Right. It's not perception. It's not judgment. Mm-hmm. It's not my experience. It's not any rule book of appropriate relationships or how parents should behave or how kids should support their friends in their hour of need. None of that junk. Right. What provides it is this love song that does what? It unifies me with ancient days, traumas, pains. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. What do you think? I think that's great. Yeah, I think it could be helpful. Okay, and the last paragraph says, and now the blind can see. For that same song they sing in honor of their Creator gives praise to them as well. The blindness that they made will not withstand the memory of this song, and they will look upon the vision of the Son of God, remembering who he is they sing of. What is a miracle but this remembering? And who is there in whom this memory lies not? The light in one awakens it in all, and when you see it in your brother, you are remembering for everyone. Yeah, that's the main thing. When you see it in your brother, you are remembering it for everyone.
The sonship is one. And so what we do, as you said, in any kind of healing process, whatever that looks like, in allowing for those moments that you said, like powerful moments from a long ancient time of our own personal history, that they can be that doorway.
We've decided.
And you see that brother who was in the, it can be very present again, Steve lying there and everything else. And the veil can be lifted. And God only knows if he's still alive or not. And
he's dead.
He is. Well,
died in Arizona.
He could be released in the heavenly realms as well. It's still possible because we're all connected,
no,
regardless.
It's not possible. It's definite.
Yes, right.
It's not possible. It's an absolute reality.
Okay.
Because Steve and I are traumatically bonded in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, if I walk through that doorway,
right,
that power which was hermetically sealed in my judgment, like a jar, twist the lid down, bury it in the desert.
Okay.
And here I am so much later.
Yeah.
I had no ability to process it or deal with it at the time.
Right.
But now, as I'm talking about it, just saying, I experience it as that, cachet buried in the desert of my experience.
Uh-huh.
And you find that cachet and you open it up. And what happens is Steve, dead, gone, traumatic life, pain, difficulty. I don't know how it ripples through his history. I don't know how it changes the events of his actual life that's already gone.
Considered gone, right. Yeah, we don't know. That's what the interesting thing
about. It's the
way
you heal timelines.
Yes, we do heal timelines.
You heal what Seth, the channel message, you heal what's called alternate realities.
Uh-huh.
Every life based on a choice has these threads of expanding alternate realities.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an alternate reality there where I'm sitting here right now and I go, should I bring up the Steve thing?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I'm not.
Right.
And I keep that door closed just because I don't want to spend the time.
Right.
Just because I don't want to go there. I'm afraid of what I'll find. I don't know what I'm going to find. Whatever it is.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. I agree that it is definite. I didn't mean to. Yeah.
No, I know. I always jump on you on that because it's like, well, hey, maybe we'll get a little luck here. Maybe the Holy Spirit will deliver for a change.
No. It is definite. I agree because a healed relationship is a healed relationship.
There's no way I can release joy. There's no way I can bring joy. Put it this way. There's no way I can allow Steve, tubes and all, cockeyed and all, to bring me joy. He made that radical morphosis of his life to bring me power in that moment. What's the mystery of these? I don't know. But in that, we can be not severed and forgotten, like, closure. Now Steve's dead and gone, and I'm at peace. Thank God I'm at peace. No, we're unified. There's a marriage there. That the traumatic moment is completed in a way now that I can do now that I could not do then. And that's healing the past in the present.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the course. I think that's great.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.